May all beings have happiness and its causes. May all beings be free from suffering and its causes. May all beings never be separated from the great happiness that is beyond all misery. May all beings dwell in equanimity, unaffected by attraction to dear ones and aversion to others. May all beings recover from the sicknesses of mind and body pollution and enjoy relative and absolute health now and forever. May all beings relax in a healthy outer and inner environment now and forever. May all beings enjoy inner peace and world peace now and forever. Malusem shen kungi gengyo chi rude punje mi ze jom ze la mena malu yanda kengyo pe chom den go jene die shek zu so. Protector of all beings without exception, endless subduer of harmful beings and energies, Deity, perfect knower of all things, Bhagavan and attendants, please come here to this place. Dombipa, the tiger rider. The philosopher's stone transforms base metal into gold. In the heart of the great jewel, passion is transformed into pure awareness. In his youth, Dombipa, the king of Magadha, was initiated by the Guru Virupa into the meditation rites of the Buddha deity Hevajra. This practice gave him many magical powers, yet he kept them hidden. Although he was the most enlightened of rulers and treated each of his subjects as a father would treat his only child, his people never suspected that he was an initiate of the mysteries. They knew only that their king was an honest man who treated his subjects with an even hand. But Magadha had great need of its initiate king, because it had been burdened with bad karma for generations. The people suffered from the seemingly endless ravages of war, poverty, crime, famine, and pestilence. Desirous of liberating his people from this fate, the king thought long and hard about the best way to bring this to pass. At last, he ordered the casting of a huge bronze bell, knowing that the sound of a bell has the power to drive out demons and purify the minds of those who hear it. With much ceremony, the king had the great bell hung from the strongest branch of a venerable tree growing in the very heart of the royal city. Before all the people, the king instructed his chief minister thusly: "Whenever you see danger, or poverty, or disease, you must strike this bell with all your might." The minister obeyed faithfully, and each time the thrilling tones of the bell filled the air, the karmic cloud that hung over the kingdom was dissipated more and more, until in time the entire kingdom of Magadha and each heart dwelling there had been purified by the clarifying vibrations. Peace and prosperity, health and joy filled the land. Many years later, a troop of low-caste wandering minstrels chanced to arrive in the royal city. Hearing of their presence, the king summoned them to sing and dance for him. All through the entertainment, the king could not draw his eyes away from the face of one of the performers, a young girl of extraordinary purity and charm, fair-skinned, with classical features and an innocent demeanor. This virgin of 16 was yet untainted by the world. She had all the qualities of a lotus child, a Padmini, and the king decided then and there to make her his spiritual consort. Discovering that she was the daughter of the chief minstrel, the king summoned him to his presence. However, when he asked the man for his daughter, the minstrel could only stare at the king in open-mouthed disbelief. Finding his tongue at last, the minstrel replied, "You are the great king of Magadha. You rule 800,000 households. We are low-caste wretches. No union is allowed between our kind and yours. How could you even entertain such a thought?" The king, however, asked that the girl be weighed, and the minstrel stood dumbfounded as the chief minister counted out her weight in pure gold and handed it to him. For a spate of years their mystic union remained hidden from all. But in the 12th year prying eyes and gossiping tongues discovered their secret. Like wildfire, the rumor that the king was consorting with a woman far beneath his status swept across the realm. The royal scandal brought the business of the kingdom to a halt. Despite all the years of the king's just and benevolent rule, his subjects refused to tolerate such a flagrant transgression of the old age laws of caste. They insisted upon his abdication. Entrusting his kingdom to his son and faithful ministers, the king disappeared into the jungle with his partner. There, in an idyllic hermitage, surrounded by all the fruits and creatures of the earth, they dwelt in blissful solitude. Undisturbed for another 12 years, they devoted themselves to the practice of Tantric Yoga. But in the kingdom of Magadha, all was not well. Without the clarity and wisdom of the king, hardship returned. The great bell cracked, and war, pestilence, and famine once again ravaged the land. In despair, the young king ordered a council to be convened. There it was decided that the old king should be asked to return, and a delegation was immediately dispatched into the jungle to find him. For weeks, the search party looked high and low, traveling into remote parts of the jungle unexplored in human memory, but there was no trace of the old king nor his consort. Finally, one day, lost and discouraged, ready to return home in failure, the youngest among them noticed something unusual. A vast silence had settled over the forest. No birds sang, no leaves rustled. All the world was perfectly still. In the distance, they could just make out a faint glow. Moving silently in that direction, they came at last upon the king sitting under a tree by the shores of a lake, deep in meditation. There, in the middle of the lake, treading delicately upon a pathway of lotus leaves floating on the surface, was his consort. Gracefully she bent and dipped her hand into the waters of the lake, and bubbling up from the amazing depth of 15 fathoms, there arose a fountain of shimmering nectar. Catching the divine liquid in her cupped hands, she traveled back across the lily pads to offer the drink to her consort. Awe-stricken, the search party could not bring themselves to intrude upon the royal solitude. They rushed back to the city to report all that they had witnessed, and another delegation was dispatched to the king. They carried with them messages, pleas, and prayers from the length and breadth of the realm, beseeching him to return. The king received the envoys in his hermitage. Deeply moved by their tale of woe, the king agreed to return and help his suffering people. He told them to expect him a fortnight hence. On the day of his return, thousands of people lined the route to the palace. To their astonishment, the king, brandishing a deadly snake as a whip, emerged from the shadowy jungle riding with his consort on the back of a pregnant tigress. Overcome with fear, the people fell to their knees and begged him to take up the reins of government once again. "How can I possibly do as you asked?" reasoned the king. "You drove me away because I had lost my caste status by consorting with a woman of low birth. Casteless, I cannot rule." When they began to bewail their cruel fate, the king took pity on them and said, "Since death ends all distinction, you must burn us together on a funeral pyre. In our rebirth, we will be absolved." A great pyre was constructed of the most fragrant and precious wood in the kingdom, cowhead sandalwood. Serenely, without a moment's hesitation, the king and his consort mounted to the top, and the wood was set afire. For 7 days it perfumed the air. For 7 nights it lit the sky as brightly as the sun. On the 8th day, the fire suddenly and mysteriously disappeared. As the people drew near, they were amazed to see, hovering in the air above the ashes, a lotus-shaped cloud of shimmering dewdrops. In the heart of this magical flower sat the king in the guise of the Buddha deity Hevajra in ecstatic union with his consort. At this, the last vestige of doubt fell from the minds of the people of Magadha. They gave their king the name Dombipa, Lord of the Dombi, after his outcast consort. Emerging from the lotus cloud, the king addressed his ministers and all the people of his realm, the 4 castes gathered together. "If you can find it in your hearts to do as I have done," said the king, "I will stay to govern you." But shocked, the populace protested, "We are not yogins. How can you ask us to give up our way of life? How can you ask us to become casteless?" The king sighed deeply and said, "How useless is political power, and how great the retribution for using it. Those who wield authority do very little good, and more often do great harm." As he spoke, the outlines of his form became increasingly transparent and insubstantial. His last words were, "My only kingdom is the kingdom of truth," whereupon he dissolved into perfect awareness and pure delight to dwell forever in the paradise of the Dakinis. Ni modelek tsendelek, ni megungyang delek shin, nin sentak tu delek del, Kunsho sumgi jingi lo, kunsho sumgi ngadrubzo, kunsho sumgi hitashi sho. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness.